This PowerPoint provides a brief overview of the interim final rule for the nutrition standards for all foods sold in school as required by the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. The rule is more commonly known as Smart Snacks in School or the Competitive Food Standards. The Smart Snacks rule will become effective July 1, 2014. Until then, the current rule for foods of minimal nutritional value will remain in effect. It is important to note on July 1, 2016, two of the nutrition standards will be affected. The sodium content in snacks will be reduced from 230 milligrams to 200 milligrams, and the standards that allow foods containing 10% of the daily value of a nutrient of public health concern will be obsolete. Therefore, containing 10% of the daily value of a nutrient of public health concern will no longer qualify a product as a servable food. Another important date to remember is Monday, October 28, 2013. Public comment on the interim final rule closes the 28th. Please keep note of any questions, comments, or concerns and share them on the website listed. It is highly encouraged that questions, comments, or concerns are posted on the website. The citation for the interim final rule is provided for reference. This information will be listed again at the end of the presentation. So what does the Smart Snacks rule apply to? The interim final rule applies to all foods and beverages sold in competition with programs authorized by the National School Lunch Act and the Child Nutrition Act on the school campus during the school day. Events and products impacted by the Smart Snack rule includes vending machines, fundraisers, school stores, and items sold a la carte. In other words, any sold food and/or beverage on the school campus during the school day. Let's go through the definitions that will outline the who, what, where, and when of the Smart Snacks rule. The interim final rule defines where and when these regulations apply on the school campus during the school day. The school's campus is defined as all areas of the property under the jurisdiction of the school that are accessible to students during the school day. For example, if there was vending in a room behind a door only accessible to staff, the regulations do not apply to that vending during the school day. The school day is defined as the period from the midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Therefore, if school ends at 3 p.m., the regulations do not apply to food and/or beverage sold between 3:30 p.m. and 11:59 p.m. Events at the school that occur from 30 minutes after school until midnight will not need to comply with the regulations. Competitive food is defined as all food and beverages other than those meals reimbursable under programs authorized by the National School Lunch Act and the Child Nutrition Act available for sale to students on the school campus during the school day. In other words, all food and beverages sold in competition with the food and beverages sold as part of the reimbursable meals. Combination food is defined as products containing two or more components representing two or more of the recommended food groups, which are fruit, vegetable, dairy, protein, or grains. For example, yogurt and fruit or cheese and crackers. Entree items are combination foods comprised of a meat alternate served with whole grain rich food, vegetable, or fruit. An entree may also be a meat alternate served alone with the exception of yogurt, low-fat reduced fat cheese, nuts, seeds, nut seed butters, and meat snacks. Snack items are foods not considered an entree. Now that we've identified what the Smart Snacks rule applies to, we need to address who is responsible for ensuring compliance of the regulations. The definitions and statements on the slide are intended to highlight important pieces to illustrate the shared responsibility between administration and school food service. The guidance defines Local Education Agency, or LEA, and School Food Authority, or SFA, to show the defined but shared responsibility of administrative roles. Although the SFA may operate and serve meals under the National School Lunch Program, support is necessary from the LEA to ensure compliance with regulations to effectively and efficiently run the program. Compliance with the competitive food standards will need to be a joint effort between the Local Education Authority and the School Food Authority based on the permanent agreement with the state agency. The permanent agreement states the Local Education Authority will maintain a nonprofit school food service account and observe the limitations on any competitive school food service as set forth in 21011B. 21011B refers to the rule's general requirements for competitive food. This is supported by the statement in the guidance which reads, when program responsibilities fall to entities outside of the school food service, the state agency must assess how units of the LEA or entities other than the school food service implement their responsibilities as applicable. In other words, the state agency will need to assess if the LEA is meeting their terms of the permanent agreement to aid in complying with regulations as outlined in the Smart Snacks Rule and the National School Lunch Program. If the LEA and SFA are not in compliance, the state agency may be expected to implement technical assistance, corrective action, or fiscal action. The interim final rule does indicate specific responsibilities for both the LEA and the SFA. The LEA's responsibilities include establishing policies and procedures to ensure compliance, maintain records, document compliance, and ensure organizations responsible for food service maintain records and ensure compliance. The LEA may impose additional restrictions consistent with the requirements to ensure compliance and provide support to the SFA. The SFA is responsible for maintaining records, documenting compliance with these foods sold under the umbrella of the nonprofit school food service. Documents and records may include receipts, nutrition labels, manufacturer's statements, and/or product specifications for the competitive foods. Essentially, responsibility falls to both the LEA and the SFA to ensure compliance within their program. Each state agency must also ensure compliance as part of the administrative review. As stated earlier, if the LEA and SFA are not in compliance, the state agency may be expected to implement technical assistance, corrective action, or fiscal action. We've covered the definitions and the responsibilities of all the agencies involved as stated in the Smart Snacks Rule. We know the interim final rule places regulations on all food and beverages sold on campus during the school day, which means it impacts fundraisers. The interim final rule states these competitive foods sold as fundraisers must meet the nutrition standards for competitive food. The rule also states there is a special exemption allowed for infrequent school-sponsored fundraisers as determined by each state agency. These specially exempted fundraiser foods and/or beverages may not be sold in competition with school meals in the food service area during the meal service. So what does this mean? Fundraisers may sell food and beverages on campus during the school day, but the products must comply with the Smart Snacks Rule. Each state agency will determine the frequency of exempted fundraisers. These exempted fundraisers may sell products that may not comply with the Smart Snacks Rule. However, these exempted fundraisers may not be held in conjunction with the food service or where students are receiving or consuming meals. For example, a student organization may not be selling food or beverages in the lunchroom during lunch if they are operating under a special exemption. There are also some other exemptions in the interim final rule. These exemptions are effective at all times for these specific foods. The following foods do not have to meet any of the nutrient standards: fresh fruits and vegetables with no added ingredients except water, canned or frozen fruits packed in 100% juice, extra light syrup or light syrup, canned or frozen vegetables with no added ingredients except water or a small amount of sugar used to maintain quality or structure of the vegetable, and sugar-free chewing gum. Entrees are exempt from the nutrient standards if they are offered as part of the lunch or breakfast program offered on the same day or school day after it is offered as part of the lunch or breakfast, or offered in the same or smaller portion size as in the lunch or breakfast program. Please note that side dishes offered as part of lunch or breakfast and served a la carte must meet the nutrient standards. This document was developed to help individuals determine whether or not a product is allowable under the interim final rule. It is being used in this presentation to share nutrient standards of the interim final rule in a concise and simple format. There will be an additional webinar available in the near future to provide instruction and examples of how to use the tool and provide more information about the interim final rule. First, let's look at the items highlighted within the blue box. These first 4 boxes on the left contain the 4 general nutrition standards competitive foods must meet to be allowable. An allowable product must be one of the following: a product containing 50% or more whole grains by weight, or have whole grains listed as the first ingredient or the second ingredient after water, a combination food that contains at least a quarter cup of fruit and or vegetable, a product that contains 10% of the daily value of a nutrient of public health concern based on the most recent dietary guidelines for Americans, which currently are calcium, potassium, vitamin D, and dietary fiber, or the product must list a non-grain main food group, fruit, vegetable, dairy, or protein, as the first ingredient or the second ingredient after water. If the product does not meet one of these 4 general nutrition standards, it is not servable under the interim final rule. If the product meets one of the general nutrition standards, it will either need to meet all of the nutrient standards, including calories, total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and sugar, or it will meet all the nutrient standards except the nutrients from which they are exempt. The items from the tool highlighted in the red box are the foods that are exempt from some of the nutrient standards. For example, if a food is considered a product made of only dried fruit with nuts and or seeds, with no added nutritive sweeteners or fats, the product will be determined allowable based on calories, trans fat, and sodium content. The product is exempt from total fat, saturated fat, and sugar standards. The other foods noted in the red box are exempt from one or more standards. The content highlighted in the green box includes the foods exempted from all standards. This document is page 1 of 2 that outlines the nutrient standards for competitive food. The second page addresses the specific nutrient standards, which are calories, total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and sugar. There are distinct standards for snacks and entrees. Accompaniments such as dressings, dips, condiments, and other food items served with a food will need to be included when comparing the nutrients. Snacks must meet the following standards: contain no more than 200 calories, be no more than 35% total fat, less than 10% saturated fat, 0 grams of trans fat, and no more than 230 milligrams of sodium, and contain no more than 35% of sugar by weight. Entrees must meet the same values for total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, and sugar. Entrees must also be no more than 350 calories and contain no more than 480 milligrams of sodium. Please note the sodium change for snacks effective July 1, 2016. The standard will be no more than 200 milligrams of sodium. So what will be the impact of the snack rule? Some common items currently found in vending machines will not be sellable on campus during the school day. Items that may not meet the nutrition standards include chips, candy, and packaged snack cakes and pastries. Fundraisers, school stores, and a la carte will not be able to sell similar products on the school campus during the school day. However, there are also some common items that may meet the standards, such as low-fat reduced fat cheese, whole grain rich chips, granola bars, nut mixes, trail mix, fresh fruit, and vegetables. These are examples to show what types of foods are impacted by the interim final rule for competitive foods sold in school. Schools participating in the National School Lunch Program will need to comply with the interim final rule when it comes into effect July 1, 2014. Beverages are also part of the interim final rule. This chart has consolidated the rule by school level and type of beverage. Beverages sold on the school campus during the school day must meet the regulations specific to the level of the school, elementary, middle, or high school. The regulation states low-fat, unflavored milk, non-fat flavored or unflavored, and nutritionally equivalent is allowed in elementary, served in 8 ounces or less, and in middle and high school in 12 ounces or less. 100% fruit juice and 100% juice diluted with water and no added additional sweeteners is allowed in elementary, served in 8 ounces or less, and in middle and high school in 12 ounces or less. That is with or without carbonation. Other beverages that are flavored, carbonated, or contain caffeine are not allowed in elementary or middle schools. These types of beverages are allowed in high school depending on the amount of calories per fluid ounce in a serving, and the container size is limited as shown in the chart. Therefore, a regular soda, whole milk, or low-fat chocolate milk will not be sellable items on any school campus during the school day. The interim final rule for Smart Snacks in school will impact a number of items sold on campus during the school day. We know this will impact a number of fundraisers as well. We encourage you to ask questions and share your comments and concerns. The public comment period ends October 28, 2013. We are waiting for further information to find out if the comment period will be extended due to the recent government furlough. If you have questions or concerns for the Utah State Office of Education Child Nutrition Programs, please call 801-538-7755 or contact Kim Loveland by email.